Hi, I'm Marlene Gabauer from the Geek and Review, and I have Nikki Shaver here from Legal Technology Hub. Nikki, you have some really important news about an agents map, right?
That's right. So some of you listening will be aware of our general market map for generative AI and legal tech. We actually just released our map of agentic AI products in legal. So anyone following along to your podcast, Marlene, knows by now that agents have been a really hot topic
Hmm.
in late 2024 into 25. And LTH has just had what we call our Agents Week, which just meant lots of different kinds of content dedicated to this trend, including an excellent article by Stephanie Wilkins diving into the definition of agents, a timeline of major agentic announcements in legal tech, and our map, which shows already over 100 products in legal that now include some form of agentic AI.
That's a
So
lot.
it is a lot. I know it's moved very quickly. Access it all on www.legaltechnologyhub.com, and look for it as well on LinkedIn. It's an interesting one to be able to show, especially if you're doing some strategic analysis of the market or want to show internally at your firm or legal department how things are changing and how quickly things are evolving in the market.
Yeah, that's going to be an incredibly useful tool for everybody. So thank you for that.
It's a pleasure.
Welcome to the Geek and Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gabauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert.
This week, we're joined by Tom Martin, CEO of LawDroid and Deep Legal. So, Tom, thank you very much for joining us on the Geek and Review.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Marlene. Thanks, Greg, for having me on.
Our
it's
fellow
good
podcaster.
Yeah. So it's nice when we have these meta shows of having somebody that has their own YouTube channel and joins us. Um, so Tom, the last show that we had you on was back last year in November, and I went back and looked at that, and we were deep into the process then of chatbots and talking about access to justice and workflow automation. But you wrote something recently in the Thomson Reuters in their online news feed about what you called the AI law professor when chatbots become senior partners. And in this, you discuss this 5-level roadmap for legal AI, and it really, I thought it was really good. And so reached out and said, please come on and talk about it. But so what was it that compelled you to outline that type of 5-level classification system?
Well, yeah, I'm really lucky. I have that platform. I get to call myself the AI law professor and write that column for Thomson Reuters. What compelled me is that actually that came from a leaked memo that came out of OpenAI. They didn't intend for people to see it, or maybe that was a marketing ploy. I don't know. But I wanted to give people a map because the first column I wrote was kind of jumping into the weeds about a specific thing. And then I wanted to kind of pull back from that, a move that I kind of learned from Richard Susskind, because he likes to zoom in on an issue and then zoom back from the issue to give you that kind of perspective. So I thought by using that to give people a map of where we might be going with AI would be really helpful for them to see what might be coming down the road.
Yeah.
And so while we're decoding the future handbook, can you walk us through the levels? So where's the tech today? Where do you think it might land over the next few years?
Yeah, so it first starts with level 1, which is chatbots. And so I was doing chatbots 9 years ago. That's not anything spectacular
I have to
or
say, I'm a little
earth-shattering.
depressed to hear that, since everybody's just talking about chatbots now.
Yeah. I was
That's
I was
level
doing
one.
Yahoo
We're only
chat,
level
at
one.
at the turn of the century.
Yeah, the next level after chatbots is reasoners. So when you actually have the ability for it to think through step by step and break down a problem. And that has been only about a year of reasoners that we've had. And then after that, agents.
Yeah.
And there's different flavors of agents that we're, learning about now. There's workflow agents, and then there's actually autonomous agents, which we really haven't gotten to. There's been some plays at that, and I could talk more about that in depth, but I don't think we're really there yet.
Yeah.
After that becomes innovators. Innovators is interesting because it's kind of hard to wrap our heads around, but so what would make an innovative AI?
Right.
The example that I throw at people is, imagine that you could take an AI and you could roll its knowledge back to the year 1900. And given everything that it knows at that time in 1900, would it be able to come up with, let's say, the theory of special relativity on its own? If it could, that's what we mean by an innovative AI. It's one that could actually take that jump, those conceptual jumps of putting things together, connecting the dots, and coming up with a new invention or idea.
Yeah.
And then lastly,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, number 5 is organizations. It's where all of these things come together, and you could actually run an entire organization with the benefit of AI and everything it could do.
Without
Yeah.
anybody? Without anybody?
Potentially, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna jump to level 3 in my notes, but OpenAI today just rolled out the GPT-5, and essentially set the default to the reasoning models now. And that's from what I'm gathering, it's like most of the previous models are going to be sunset, and the default is going to be these reasoning models. And so I know I think you had a little chance to play with the API a little bit, but what do you think that changes for the legal industry, that the AI now isn't just the chatbot kind of one-shot things, but rather now every time that you're going to deal with it, you're dealing with this reasoning model? Do you think we're going to need to adjust to that?
Well, there's definitely an adjustment period for all of this.
Right.
It's a crazy amount of change in a small amount of time, but there's 2 things that stand out to me. One is that this model is best described as a hybrid model. So before, we had something that was straight inference, where it just gave you an answer. Then we had the reasoners, which would think things through and kind of plan things out and then give us a response. What this thing does is it kind of thinks about which is the best approach and then provides us with just what we need. So it's kind of like putting together both of those approaches. And that way it just provides us the best answer that we would likely need. So it saves a lot of time and it puts everything together. The second thing I would mention is that in terms of not only law firms, but anyone else using or benefiting from this model, what can it provide us that's different? Because I could tell you that as these models get better, it's kind of getting harder and harder to tell how they're different because they're getting so good. But one thing that I think kind of clarifies this, I played around with Operator, the first attempt at agency that they used back when it first came out. Operator, I would give it a task to look something up, and it would open up multiple tabs and just kind of send itself in circles because it opened way too many tabs on the browser it was using, right? It would just kind of get lost in the assignment. And then Agent came out just recently, and I tried using Agent, and I assigned it a task of researching something, giving me a report. Okay. Because part of it is deep research, it did that really well. But then the next part of it, where I said, hey, can you make a Google Doc out of that and then email it back to me? It got stuck on that part of it for 26 minutes and was just going around in circles. So what this new model can do is it can actually keep that attention on the task that it's given and know the assignment and carry it forward for a longer period of time with more attention.
So, Tom, so you and your level, I want to go back to the level 3. So you're talking about
Okay.
that, AI would do, proactive monitoring, filings, interacting with systems. And you're saying less than 3 years, right, to get there?
To fully autonomous?
Yeah.
Well, I think that was my estimate, is that we would probably be there with people using it, adoption. I think in terms of it actually being there, GPT-5 is actually taking us much closer. That ability to have like a sustained effort where it actually can work towards accomplishing that goal is going to definitely get us farther than operator and ChatGPT's agent. I think what their plan was is that they launched ChatGPT agent with the best model they had at the time, with the intention of bringing 5 in to make it even more effective. So I think in terms of autonomous agents that actually work, probably in the next couple of years, we'll have something that works really well. As far as adoption, I do think it would, like within a year, we'll have the technology that's working. Within about 3 years, we'll actually have adoption of people across, business and corporations and law firms.
So, okay. So then my next question is like, what about the ethical concerns?
Yeah, there's definitely ethical concerns. And actually, my next column for Thomson Reuters is talking exactly about the principles that we should employ when using agents. And there's 4 of them, and all of them go towards ethics. One is transparency. With whatever agent we use, we need to have transparency. We need to know what it's doing and why it's doing it. So it actually reports back to us and gives us explanations of what it's doing. It has to be autonomous, or otherwise it's not an agent. But we really shouldn't mistake autonomy for reliability. Just because it might be a good model, a smart model, doesn't mean it's entirely reliable. And so that's the third principle, is that we have to ensure reliability. And lastly, visibility. And I think this one is actually overlooked by a lot of people. Visibility has to do with the body of information and knowledge that's made available to the agent. Because there's always some limit on how much knowledge we have available to us. And we can only make decisions based upon what we know, right? Not what we don't know, obviously. But what we don't know might be important, but we just don't know it. And so likewise, an agent is going to have some kind of limitation on what it knows. And so it could make a mistake potentially by only relying on what it knows. And there could be something that's left out. So we need to be cognizant of that. Agents are not seers. They're not magical. They only know what they know. And so we need to be cautious about relying on them and keeping in mind that they only have a certain limited amount of information available to them.
I mean, it sounds like it, there's still the data problem like that firms have, having good data to give to your system. So you're still going to have the same sort of problems if you have, bad data or not enough data, I guess, to use these tools.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there has to be a way of viewing what those limitations are, and knowing what the scope of knowledge is, and then taking active steps to supervise it and add more if necessary.
I'm gonna sort of switch a little bit, talking about the levels, and sort of move into sort of how things are since our last conversation. I'm pulling out a quote: "Firms that resist may find themselves bypassed by history," and that was in your article. So now that we're about 8 months past our last conversation, what signs are you seeing that signal who's sprinting and who's strolling?
Well, you can see that a lot of firms are trying to join the sprint. And I think, you know,
And really
some of the-
trying to sprint, not just the hype, right?
well, there are firms that sign on just for marketing purposes where they could you know, reflect that, you know, show that to their clients. I've actually been speaking with innovation officers within firms that are actually making a change. And that's actually something I'm doing right now towards a book that I'm writing about this type of experience and innovation that's happening within firms, because I want to hear it from the boots on the ground, the people that are actually doing it in a real way, not just press releases, and what they might have in common. But certainly there's a lot of talk about innovation. But I think that in some ways, not to sound controversial, but in some ways, I think
Go ahead, sound controversial. We like that.
I think in some ways it may already be too late. It might already be too late because the level of sophistication and capability that we're seeing, even before today's release of GPT-5, has been exceptional. And GPT-5 brings a lot of these disparate things together in one model, with a high proficiency of expertise right out of the box. This is without any fine tuning or additional training. And so if you're a professional services company or a professional, you know, you have to be working with this technology to amplify what you do. And there's always that concern kind of far off in the back of our heads, which is it possible at some point for that organization that I talked about at level 5 to actually be undertaking this work and delivering work product at scale? Yes, it is. And, you know, some companies that are participating in legal tech right now, you know, some of them, are they participating with lawyers for the purpose of helping lawyers or learning their tactics and work product and using it to their advantage? Like, there's a question about that. So it's a difficult time because every model essentially is a sea change, and we just need to find our way to navigate through it.
I'm curious. I mean, with this new release, I mean, how? Because I know that they did mention that it's they're sort of looking at it at ChatGPT for legal. Like, how is that going to impact some of the existing, you know, LLM tools that firms are using now?
Yeah, I mean, it was mentioned explicitly more than once. Sam Altman hinted at it. Mark, who followed him, also mentioned, and legal. You know, like, this is an expert in your pocket. Greg, also, when he was talking, was saying that it's essentially an expert in many things, including legal. So this is definitely something that, you know, people are already using it. They're already getting legal guidance from ChatGPT, and now with the benefit of GPT-5, they're going to get better information and guidance, and yes, advice. And so then, you know, the real question isn't whether or not lawyers want that to happen or if they're going to allow it to happen. It's already happening. And so we just need to find a way of living in a world where we're still relevant and we can contribute to, you know, helping people in a real way that makes a difference in their lives.
So I was going to pose another question because Greg asked our guest last week, Ken Crutchfield, this question. I thought it was really interesting that, and sort of given what you're saying about, you know, ChatGPT, you know, could they buy kind of one of our large legal information, you know, information organ, you know, corporations? I mean, is that feasible?
100%.
Does it make sense?
Actually, when I was teaching my class at Suffolk, towards the end of it, because this was last spring semester, I was talking to my students at the end that what I see as the way forward for business generally, software businesses like the legal tech companies, I don't see a future in that, software. As we saw demonstrated with GPT-5, you could just basically ask for what you want and it creates it. That was possible even before GPT-5 with Replit. There were various solutions that were working really well, some of which I use myself. And so software on its own, dead end. Consulting on its own, dead end. Professional education just solely on its own, to me, is a way of reaching out and marketing to people. And that on its own, I think, is a dead end. The only way forward I see is actually like a congruence, a bringing together of those three things, which before this time has been seen as too much. Like, well, I'm just doing software, like if I spread myself too thin, I'm going to do software and education and, services, right? That's been the mentality, the classical traditional mentality is that that's spreading yourself too thin. The way that I think of it, that's the only way forward. And I think evidence of that being true, which I've seen happen since the end of last semester, OpenAI, for example, has really been taking on consulting. And this approach where you combine all of those things together, which, by the way, consulting and services becomes much more scalable with AI, so you're not spreading yourself that thin to accomplish it. You could really provide real value for people by combining those three things. So that's what I think the answer is. I hope I didn't spread
that is a
myself too thin with that
fascinating
answer.
And we're going to have to think about that one for a while.
Yeah. Well, and I had asked if specifically if someone like Microsoft should come in and buy them, which I think may actually make more sense than an OpenAI doing it, because Microsoft's already embedded into the law firms. And so, so it was something I hadn't even thought of
before. But if ChatGPT turns, puts out something legal, then and pushes the other ones out.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe getting that data would be useful.
It's going to be interesting.
And well, I realize I didn't directly answer the question about OpenAI buying it. I do see that in the cards. They've been an extremely aggressive.
Greg, he sees it in the cards. See,
they've been an extremely aggressive company in terms of taking up market share and this push into consulting, and I see it probably being part of their prospectus and playbook to do that.
I'm going to switch things up a little bit, so I want to focus on LawDroid, Tom. And you've been running weekly news and analysis and YouTube interviews. Super great stuff, super informational, really helpful. And this is under the LawDroid Manifesto as the Last Week in Legal AI series. So what are you seeing lately that, from your work there that excites or alarms you? Maybe alarms you.
Well, there's been, like on my daily news that I put out, there's a lot that is alarming me, and I write about it, my takeaways on it. It actually, I'm going to write an article that's going to come out probably in a week or so that I'm calling a Gen X tech progressives apology. And the reason why I feel kind of compelled to write it is that I think, being a Gen Xer, growing up at that moment in time, tech and, R2D2 and like the future and everything was just so exciting and compelling, and a vision that, I've always hoped would come to reality. But I think that's been blinding to a certain extent because, I talk to my daughters who are 18 and 23. They're much more skeptical about this stuff and worried, not only about their job prospects, but about all of the information about themselves, personal information that could be made available to technology. And I think some people in my generation have been far too forgiving and open. And I think there is a lot to be worried about. You look at CEOs talking about AI first job policies. If you can't find an AI to do it, then maybe a human being. People turning to AI for therapy, and then being given shoddy advice from AI, and there's hundreds of examples of how it negatively impacts us. That there's a lot to be concerned about.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that let me focus in on the using AI as basically a therapist. I mean, Sam Altman brought on specifically that issue and talked about it, and that seems to be something that they're 100% going in on. That it's not just therapy, but rather it's also mental health issues, relationships. That this could be your new friend, and when we got Gen Zs now
It's your
that
new AI friend.
yeah, I mean that's nothing new. But you've got a younger generation that is, when they do use it, they're using it almost as this, like their own personal social gathering or social interaction. And so I think it's interesting to see the millennials and Gen Xers having this concept of, oh yeah, though that's pretty cool, and then looking at the younger generation, and I'm a little scared at how they're using it, but also the skepticism that they're having, because this is going to directly affect them. So it's a weird dichotomy of how the younger generation and even the older generation are looking at these AI tools.
And I don't mean to say that it's all generational. I mean, it all depends on, like, maybe your mental generation, but
Yeah, because
I
I
mean,
still act like a teenager. So
but I agree with you. I mean, the younger generation is going to have to live with this, and I kind of feel concerned about what we're going to leave them.
yeah. So speaking of the younger generation, let's look at your teaching responsibilities at Suffolk, at the law school there. It, you've been an adjunct professor there. So what questions are students bringing in now, as they see these advancements in AI? And is there anything that you didn't expect?
Not really that I didn't expect. I think they had a lot of great questions about the limitations of the different models that they were using, and they found great ways of using it to their advantage. I think they all voiced a concern, about job prospects post graduation. I think, though, the timing for them, for the class that I had this last spring, and that I'll likely have, well, I'm teaching again this coming spring. I think the timing for them is actually good, because it's this middle ground. We haven't fully transitioned to this new way, and certainly many different law firms are at various different levels of sophistication when it comes to AI. That kind of arbitrage between different levels of AI comfort gives them an opportunity, because if they do have a background in understanding how it works, and I gave them essentially like an AI implementation plan that they could take to a law firm they go to work for, it gives them real value, because they could be that translator between worlds that a lot of employers are looking for right now. So it actually is a big plus, I think, for them to have that expertise.
And one of the things that, and I heard right before the GPT-5 show came out, because it was this understanding that these reasoning models were going to now be the default. But I heard someone that isn't a lawyer talk about one of the great skill sets that users of this system can have is a understanding of the Socratic method, because with these tools, it's not just a let me put in a prompt and get the answer and then we're done. That the same techniques that go into a Socratic method actually improve the output that the AI tools can do, so that you ask it follow-up questions. How did you come to that reasoning? What led you to choose this over this? And I think that it's one of those things where, and I used to tease that if you thought the Socratic method in law school was finally going to go away, sorry, it's probably going to stay here, at least for the foreseeable future.
All of us intergrown.
Do you see that as kind of the techniques that you use for learning in law school are actually going to be beneficial in this new era of AI?
So besides asking the right questions, I think it also is going to it's going to be a question of talent, really, and the ability to curate the information. Because only if you have a background in the domain of expertise will you know what questions to ask, will you know what makes sense to choose and to curate and choose the right things so that it's valuable for other people. And I think that AI right now, it doesn't have that talent for curation. We ultimately can still bring that to the table.
Well, we can't let you go before we talk about, I think well, it's third on our list, but it may be your number one passion is the work that you're doing with the American Legal Technology Awards, and that's coming up in October there in Boston at Suffolk. So tell us a little bit more and how that's going.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. I mean, right now we've gotten just about 200 nominations submitted for the awards in
Wow.
10 different categories. I know that Kat Moon and Patrick Pallas, my partners in putting on the show, are excited to review everything and see all the nominations that have been put in. We have close to 30 judges that are so awesome, world-class judges that are volunteering their time to judge these different nominees. And October 15th at Suffolk University Law School in Boston, it's going to be an amazing time. So if anybody's going to be at the Clio Cloud Conference, please come to our awards gala. It is it is Law Prom. It is the Oscars of legal tech, as we like to call it. So, please come on down.
All right. Do you have seat fillers, so as people go to the bathroom, you have someone to fill their seats?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I should mention it. AmericanLegalTechnology.com. If you could please go there, AmericanLegalTechnology.com. Check it out. We still have early bird tickets.
Awesome.
Great. So, Tom, we're at the crystal ball question, and I know you're familiar with this. So, what do you see as the biggest change or challenge that the legal industry will be facing? We always say the next 1 to 3 years. I feel we should change this up to the next 6 months, maybe. I'll let you decide on the timeline.
Oh man.
This is really great or
It's
really
just smooth
worrisome that he's
sailing.
thinking of so many things.
Yeah, no, nothing could go wrong.
So that's a pretty tall order. I know that just figuring out where we fit in this changed world, because it is changing daily, and it feels like it is a sea change each time, where like the underlying assumptions, the ground that we're standing on, changes underneath us, and we have to rethink where north is every time. And I think that, where it's leading is towards a completely new model of helping people. It's a new service model. Is it a service education plus software model, as I theorized earlier, that's the way forward. I don't know. I don't know for sure. Nobody knows. We're all grasping at straws here, and whether or not we're going to still be in the mix, and what our economy is going to look like, and do we have to engage in a new political science, a new political philosophy, to make this make sense for everyone and include everyone in, hopefully, the abundance that we're going to create for ourselves, and not exclude people from it. That's my hope for the future.
Well, that is a great answer.
Yeah.
And Tom Martin, thank you so much for taking the time with us here on the Geek in Review.
Thank you both for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk with you too.
And of course, thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek in Review podcast. If you enjoy the show, share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you, so reach out to us on LinkedIn or Blue Sky.
And Tom, for the listeners who want to learn more about what you're doing with LawDroid and all the other adventures that you're on, what's the best place for them to go?
Thank you for that, Greg. The best place to follow me would be to go to LawDroidManifesto.com, LawDroidManifesto.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter. It's free. I'd love to have you.
And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Thank you both.
Yeah. Bye-bye.